now, but we got some Hawaiian music playing in the background. We're starting games right now. In 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Golf Podcast Live. I'm your host, Raphael Calmat. With us today is our co-host in Vancouver, Michael Bleakley. Lots to talk about today. We got the PGA Tour starting up in Hawaii, the Century Champions event. Then we got the Senior Tour, which is the Champions Tour, out in Hawaii as well, and the ladies event happening up in Naples. But first, before we get started, we got a very special guest. His name is Fraser Mulholland. Welcome, Fraser.
Thank you, gentlemen. It's great to be on the show. You guys are doing a great job, and I'm happy to be on the show with you to talk some golf.
Thank you. That's amazing.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Fraser, for those of you who don't know, is the commissioner of the Vancouver Golf Tour. It's a developmental tour for amateurs and professionals, also known as the VGT Tour. He's a member of the PGA of Canada since 1992, multiple professional wins around the world. And let's start with getting to know you a little bit, Fraser. How did you get started with golf, and where are you today, and what are you doing in the sphere of golf?
Well, I mean, I was very fortunate to have been born in the home of golf in Scotland. And I'm not going to say what year, that's going to age me, but I lived in Aberdeen, north of Scotland, till I was about 9 years old, and was fortunate to get a golf club in my hands at the early age of about 6 or 7. Played a little bit. Dad led us on some of the shorter golf courses there with him, and then we made our hiatus out to Canada in 1977, I think it was, and we've been mainly in the greater Vancouver area, Tsawwassen. I grew up mostly in Tsawwassen, and started my kind of junior career there. Lived just close to the short golf course just down the hill. Very lucky to live so close to a golf course where we could walk down the hill and onto the golf course. And basically that was the start of our junior golf. My brother and I both played, and he was a year older and always better. And I kind of exited golf in my 15, 16 kind of years because I just got so sick of him beating me, and took up tennis for a couple of years. Started working at Beach Grove Golf Club, a private club in Tsawwassen. And really what shaped my career in golf or changed my potentially going to tennis or golf was my head pro, Sid Dahl, and I always thank him for this because he gave me the ultimatum and said, Fraser, I cannot keep giving you weekends off to go play tennis tournaments. I will gladly give you any weekend off if you come back to golf and you come back and play golf. And that was it. I never played tennis again. I threw my tennis racket in the closet, and I don't think I've ever touched a tennis racket since. And that was the start of it. I had worked in the back shop at Beach Grove since about 15 years of age. So I guess technically I've been in the industry for over 35 years now. And I think it was that, just being at the golf course and being surrounded by all the members, and playing golf tournaments. I always wanted to compete and see how good I could get, and that's what really started my golf career off.
Very
Amazing.
cool. And we know you played in the Air Canada Championship and Canadian Open, Canadian Tour, and for those of us who don't know about your tournament experience, why don't you elaborate a bit on tour life and traveling and your experiences there?
No question. I'm a bit of a late bloomer in that, I kind of lost a couple of good years of junior golf. I certainly wasn't good enough to be ranked and get any scholarships down in the States. But my brother and I did go to UBC, where we studied there, and we kind of stumbled on the golf team there, actually, from one of my longtime mentors, Harry White, who passed away a few years ago. But Harry brought my brother and I onto the team, to the qualifying for the team, I should say, in my second year of UBC, and never looked back. I had 4 wonderful years of experience there at UBC, playing for the team, getting to actually travel with the team, small bit of scholarship help paid for school. But I still really didn't come into my own until late my last year at UBC. And I think that summer, I won a couple of amateur tournaments, and really prompted me to take it more seriously and think about turning pro. And my pro was very, very supportive of me to join the PGA. And I guess in 92, I said, let's go to the qualifying, the PAT as they called it, playability test. And I passed that and played in my first tournament that fall, Beach Grove Pro-Am. I came third place. My team won. And I said, wow, this is awesome. I mean, I'm making money playing golf.
Cool.
And great. So my first full season was the next year, 93, as a young pro. And I had pretty good success in my first year. It took me, a couple months to kind of get my feet wet. Bill Wilms ran a similar tour to what we now run with the VGT, smaller scale, but I won my first event down in Sun Valley, where he had an event there. And I actually won 5 tournaments that year and got a little bit of confidence behind me and thought, well, I'm ready to go to the Canadian Tour School, and quickly had my handed to me in my final round. I bogeyed my last 5 holes to miss by 2 shots. And that's the journey of golf. You really need to kind of just keep working on getting success at each level. And I tried again the next year in spring, and I actually followed the Canadian Tour the following year. And, I made it into a few events, but again, I kind of had my ass handed to me just with so many good players out there. And I went up that level thinking I was one of the best. And I saw, 150 guys that were equally as good as me or better. And it just, it kicked me in the ass. And I really didn't get back to compete again for probably 4 or 5 more years. I came back to the industry side of golf, and I accepted a coaching position at UBC, where I coached for 3 years. I was still an assistant pro Beach Grove. And then I actually went to Shaughnessy for a year. And then I took the director of teaching operations position at McCleary for 2 years. And that it was after those 2 years, I started to think a little bit more about playing again. I was still playing and working on my game, but nothing like I did back in my first couple of years. And then 1999, I took the head pro job at Tsawwassen back in my own neighborhood. And that year I qualified for the Air Canada Championship, 1999, where Mike Weir ended up winning that one. And it was really, really cool. Like, it was the best professional experience in my life to get to play, just even though it was just for 2 days. It was the best experience of my life to play with the PGA Tour players, to see how it was all handled, to see how you got treated. And I said, hey, I kind of like this. I think I'm going to give it another shot. So that fall, I left my position at Tsawwassen. I said, I want to get back and try and play again. And my boss, or the owners of the golf course, said, you can leave and come back in 4 months, keep your job. We'll have it here for you if you want. And I opted to not, because I knew that was sort of I would always have something to back into. Mm-hmm. And so I resigned my position. I went to Australia for 4 months. I tried to play their circuit. I went to their Q school. I didn't get through. But by being a PGA pro, I was able to play on their Pro-Am circuit and try and qualify for a number of events. And I actually got in the Australian Open, played in the Australian Open that year. And Adam Scott was there, Ernie Els was there. It was an international field. It was part of the European Tour at the time. And again, I got another bit of a taste of it, but came back 4 months later, absolutely broke. 20 to 30 grand worth of expenses traveling. Golf and travel is expensive when you're trying to make it. And fast forward 4 or 5 years later, I came back into a position on the North Shore at Seymour Creek Golf Center, where the head pro there was very kind to me. He said, do what the position is yours. Work as much as you want, as little as you want. Keep playing. And I took the head teaching job there, but I worked my butt off. I needed to, get some debt behind me, and I did. And I just worked away, and it gave me the opportunity to keep playing. I played for another 3 or 4 years. I traveled to South Africa, played in the South African Open, South African Masters. But long story short, I came back broke after 4 years, and that's ultimately what kind of led to the creation of VGT. Was, I saw how hard it was out there, how much money was spent when traveling, and just how hard it was to get ahead by doing it with at least, 20, 30 grand of expenses that you knew you were going to have every year. And that was for, a 4-month window. If you're going to do it for 8 to 10 months, it's going to be double that. It's going to be 50 grand. So I started VGT with that mindset that if we can create, and I adopted a lot of the things that I learned in Australia and South Africa. It was give them more events, roll out a schedule of events that they can play every week and do it locally, where they can do it from their backyard. The thing that those tours had that we didn't have was really an advantage over other players who are traveling. They know all the golf courses, they know how to play them, so they're going to win more of the tournaments. They're going to keep the cash, keep the money in-house. And so that's ultimately what Vancouver Golf Tour is it's a local regionalized tour for our players. And, you know, we're not taking players from outside of BC. They're welcome to come play, but it really gives our players who have learned to play on these golf courses an advantage to play affordably from home, still get trained and coached from their local pro and maybe their whoever they're working with for mental or physical fitness, and learn how to win and take that confidence beyond local golf to the next stage, onto the Mackenzie Tour and the Corn Ferry and beyond. And you know, we're very proud of 15 years later to say that we have 2 PGA Tour players that have actually won on tour, that came through VGT, used us to gain more confidence, learn how to win multiple times. And Adam Haddon and Nick Taylor are those 2 stars that are now on the PGA Tour. And Adam Svensson and Roger Sloan, now 4 BC players who have played our tour on the PGA Tour in 2022. We're extremely proud of that, and but we still have a long way to go. I'm not happy until I see 10 of our players out there and that are actually competing. And that's where I hope to leave this in 10 or 15 years from now with a footprint there that says, you know, BC golf is alive and well, and Canadian golf too. Whether we grow outside of BC, I don't know whether that'll ever happen. But to be proud of that and to say that we've done something, we've got a legacy behind Canadian golf and particularly in BC. And so that's our goal in the next sort of 10 years is to have more than just 3 or 4 players in the PGA Tour, and feel like that we're doing our parts to give young players that opportunity to succeed. There's talent everywhere, and it's a matter of can they break through beyond the regional scene and get support behind them, get sponsorship behind them, because it's expensive to go play. And that's our goal the next 5 to 10 years, to support the players more, not just from the purses here, but to introduce them to more sponsors. We're launching a $25,000 player bursary fund this year that we're going to support some of our players to go down south and travel, or just to play our tour, and really try and do our best to try and move them forward.
Fraser, that's pretty incredible. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, when you started the VGT, it was 2006, correct?
It is, yeah.
There was a need for it in Vancouver, and not just on the professional side, the amateur golfers as well, because you've had thousands of players on the amateur side. It gives them a target. I know for myself, it was much different coming to play organized tournaments than, with buddies or the odd kind of corporate tournament to come into a serious league, because there wasn't really anything like that available for amateur golfers other than some club opens here and there. But it's really driven the passion for a lot of amateur golfers in the BC area, and many have gone on to become professionals or move up through the flights from the A and B flight and championship flight, and it's been a fantastic venue for all of us golfers to get a taste of what a tour golf is like, and to get your knees shaking with a 2-foot putt and you miss it, and the frustration and the humility of golf and how different it is to play a tournament than for a few dollars in skins matches with your buddies. So my question, I guess, would be about the future and plans maybe to grow to a national level with VGT, or have you got any plans in place for that, or any thoughts on scaling it?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a great partnership right now going with the guys at the Great Lakes Tour and the East Coast Pro Tour, in where that's, our goal is to really give players that opportunity to think more than just regional, and to think about a national scale tour of some sort. Now, to take it on and to move it across Canada is a huge endeavor, right? And and that is the reason why the Canadian Tour ultimately went to their knees and said to the PGA Tour, we need help, because it was just a giant endeavor that they could not keep alive to the point of putting the purses up high enough for the players to afford to travel and to play. the purse had stayed so stagnant for so long. It couldn't breach that $150,000 purse level for so long, and inflation is inflation every single year, and it's just not a model that could be sustained now. Mackenzie Tour has kind of taken that on nationally for Canada, but it's not really a Canadian tour anymore, and that is a conversation that's happening between ourselves and the East Coast Pro Tour and the Great Lakes Tour, in that we want to do what we can for Canadians, to give them that little leg up, if you want to call it that, because as it is right now, the Mackenzie Tour is a very well run tour, and it is the stepping stone beyond to the Corn Ferry and to the PGA Tour, but it is not a Canadian tour anymore. It's an international tour, and there's 7 Q schools, I think, and only one of them is in Canada, and so there really goes back to the advantage to the USA. All the guys from those regions, 90% will be those guys who know those courses well and will get through there, and the PGA Tour Canada now becomes a US tour, international tour on Canadian soil. And so, yeah, there's definitely discussions, and do we want to be a part of it? Absolutely. Do I see, us being able to, run across Canada and run, 12 to 15 events? Not right now. We gotta make sure that our model is strong and successful, that we raise the purses here in BC first, and then maybe we get a little bit further, and maybe we go into Alberta, that it becomes a true Western Canadian tour. I like that idea, or Pacific Coast Tour, Pacific Northwest Tour, where it goes to Alberta and maybe into Seattle or Washington. There's a lot of great golf courses there. We've got, COVID to think about and the travel restrictions to think about, and the regional model really works well for that. Right now we've done very well with that model. The fact that they're saying don't travel. Okay, well, we're not. We're in our car. We're staying regionally. It's outdoors. It couldn't have been a more fantastic model for what COVID asked us to do. And so, as far as COVID being a terrible thing for, I think a majority of people and industries that have just been completely shut down, golf has been very fortunate. We have too. And it's taken a lot of people back into golf, and not just for recreational golf. We've seen an impact too. The people who maybe used to play tournament golf, they've come back and they're loving it. Our membership in 2 years, it almost doubled from 2019 to 2021, and that's amazing. Now, will it sustain? I don't know. I hope so. Like, I hope that they found golf and they've love it. They're loving the tournaments, like you and a lot of the amateurs love that competition. Love to feel that nervousness on the first tee when you get your name announced, and 3-footers count. There's no scooping it up.
Oh yeah.
And the fact that we do, and I do want to stress this, because a lot of people who hear the name VGT, I think they sort of equate it to professional golf. And like I said, I announced it, and I fault myself for not, being more inclusive in my conversations, in that the VGT is not just for, the next Adam Hadwin. It is for the whole community of golfers, and amateur and junior and women, who want to just get better and see where they can go in golf, whether they never become professional and just want to maybe get better at playing in the BC Amateur, or maybe it's the Canadian Senior Championships. And we do service a lot of the needs to prepare those players for whatever they want to go play next.
I
Fraser,
find playing your tournaments has changed my golf circle a lot, right? Because I've always had a lot of friends who golf, but you end up meeting a lot of similar capped golfers, and you end up becoming better because you're playing with better players and higher skill players than yourselves. And I find that was one of the greatest benefits of playing VGT events, was just the quality of golfer that you end up competing with on a daily basis.
And you've improved a bunch.
Yeah, no, definitely. I got down to 2.5 cap last year, so which was too bad.
Fantastic.
I got the best golf of the I've ever been at in terms of handicap wise, and then I had to sit in the bench for 4 months after the surgery. So it's been a bit of a roller coaster ride, but at the end of the day, I'm going to continue that good play hopefully through this year.
Well, Fraser, just to circle back to what you were saying, I think a lot of people have to commend you for bringing this tour around, because all of your experience, close to 40 years now, right? And I know you don't
Mhm.
want to, age yourself or anything, but it's incredible
Oh
that
God.
you're giving back, because there's two problems putting on events, especially in Canada. We live in a microclimate where we only have a peak season of about 6 to 7 months. Depends what part of the country you're in. And so when I was putting on events in 2000, 2001, and trying to put on pro-ams and team up with people, the two issues that most professionals had and amateurs was to find the time and money to get into an event. And so the affordability and the travel, because there's a lot that comes with it. And then there's the sponsorship part. It has to be worth the while of players to come out and actually, play for a prize and have pretty decent organization. Because as well as I do, even on a professional level in Canada or the US, when you go on these mini tour events, there's nothing really there. A couple of tents, there's a starter, you go out. It's like playing around, you're playing a glorified round of golf with some good players. And so having some organization, having club companies come out, and I know you do this, and you try to provide an experience from what Mike has told me and what I've read and watched through videos and articles. You're doing a fantastic job. So teaming up with other organizations is a great idea. I would love to see that, but also being regional is hard enough as it is. I think it's hard for those players to go outside, going farther west than Alberta. I mean,
Yeah.
Canada, for those who are listening in the US or other parts of the world, Canada's a pretty big place, the second largest country in the world. For someone to travel from Vancouver or Victoria all the way to PEI, it is very
It's
difficult.
expensive.
It's
It
expensive and
mhm.
difficult. Um, and so what you're doing is great. It's great. It's just getting those sponsors, right? It's getting the sponsors
Yeah.
and being able to, because I'm sure you would love to pop the purses up and get the prizes up as well. But it gives the players an opportunity to have the experience of tournament golf. And so when they go to these qualifiers or they go to the US, they've got something they could pull from, because there's a huge difference. So if amateur golfers are listening, there's a huge difference between playing at your home course or just playing around for some cash, because then there's some nervousness there between buddies, or playing a different style course. And then there's tournament golf, right? Tournament golf is very different. I don't know how many times I've gone to a tournament when I was, getting started. You guys are throwing up in the bushes. I mean, it is nerve wracking. When you're playing when something means a lot to you. I tried out 3 years in a row for the Humber golf team from '98 to 2000, and they were national champs, and so it meant a lot to me. And I played some of my worst golf in the fall, and I thought I was ready. I was able to shoot under par on most shorter tracks I would go on, at least for 9 holes. But college golf and university golf is a whole different animal now. You've got
Yeah.
sponsorship coming in 2022 for college and university students in the US. Now
Mhm.
that's being allowed, which is great because some people don't have the support system. This still is a very expensive sport. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about college, university golf, developmental tours such as yourselves, and what we could do to help younger golfers get in the game. Because Golf Canada's gone from not being able to help the way they've wanted over the years to putting 10 guys on tour and
Mhm.
20 plus players on the Mackenzie Tour. We're looking at 15 plus players now on the Symetra Tour. It's great, and we're seeing 5 players, one with an exemption, 4 who have full exempt status on the LPGA Tour. So a huge change from the days of Mike Weir, Ian, Stephen Ames.
It is, and they should be commended because they've poured the resources into the right areas, and I think they were criticized for not doing that for a long time, and I think they realized that they could possibly be the biggest solution to changing the landscape in professional golf on all tours. And they've always developed amateur golfers. They've always given amateur golfers the national level of their championships an amazing opportunity. They've always supported with player development, young amateurs and juniors, national team program, give them the benefits of great coaching, access to traveling on their dime, And now, in the last sort of 10 or 15 years, I don't know when it was they started with the young pro development program, but it has made a huge impact. You look at who's out there on tour, and you look at who's come through the Canadian golf program, through Golf Canada program, and pretty much every single, player that's now out there on the PGA Tour and LPGA and Symetra, like you said, have come through their program and utilized all the benefits in the coaching and access to, financial aid. And I think those are the biggest things that are missing, sort of beyond the, the top 8 men, top 8 women who are funded, on the amateur side and the professional side. If we could, you look at, back in Vancouver 2010, the Own the Podium program that, that happened. It works, right? Millions of dollars raised for that to help young athletes with dreams realize those dreams. They were, before that, always 1 or 2 jobs. This was their full-time thing with part-time jobs, and you just simply can't compete. And the funding and the ability to do it full-time and train as hard as you possibly can, not as hard as you can while you work 40 hours a week. And that has always been, I think, the reason why we don't have more Canadians out there on tour. It's a funding issue, a funding program that, we can be a part of. Like, we are doing our best to be a part of, but we're not making as much of an impact as Canada can. We're doing it regionally, but I would love to at one point say that we're raising $250,000, $1 million, and that's going towards programs that offer young players who have made it through college and university and want to give it a try, and really send a team of players to Q school. And that's the only way that more will get through, and fund them in their first couple years, like Golf Canada is doing. You cannot play tour golf when you're on a limited budget, when it's mainly your money. There's so few that get through when they're on that program. And time and time again, we've seen it. I've seen it, and I did see it when I was playing, that there were plenty of players that were plenty good enough to make it that never did, because one, they maybe didn't have the right coaching, they didn't have the right mentorship, they couldn't afford to slap that money down to get the right training, and it never worked out, and they ran out of money, and away they were. They're off to working either in the PGA program or becoming a realtor or whatever that was going to make them money. So there's lots to do. Finding more sponsors is our key to getting the purses up, to helping us raise money. And we're very fortunate. I have a partner in the business that has come in the last year, who is now our marketing and media wing. The company is JM Media, and I'll give him a lot of credit. Kendall Payne is his name. Mike knows him, I think, from his past. And Kendall has come through in the media side of the world, in the Vancouver Sun in the province. He was doing sales for them for 15, 20 years. And in the last 7 or 8 years, he has started up his own company, JM Media, that reaches out well beyond print media into all digital media, into television, and assisted us to get a partnership this past year with Global BC, to get us onto a very popular Saturday morning show with Jay Janauer, one of BC's sort of most popular sports figures, golf particular, and gave us our sponsors more credit for being a part of the tour, and gave the players more recognition for when they were playing well, and ultimately gave people access to learn more about what Vancouver Golf Tour is about. And we look forward to expanding that through Global BC this year. And it's all about that. If we can continue to build the media partnerships and raise awareness and give our sponsors more views, more likes, more feedback, ultimately more people will turn to their products or their services. And that's when you get the sponsorship levels higher, and allow us to, it will allow us then to maybe grow outside of the regional model into, maybe there's a company that has other offices in Alberta that can then, move the needle up and double their sponsorship for the next year if we grow outside of BC. And that's when I see it will happen. But I don't see it in the next year, but it could happen the next 3 or 4 years.
That's pretty amazing. I'm pretty fascinated with the fact that you're able to kind of juggle a lifestyle of running the tournament and getting everything together, because it is a big job and it's not easy to do. So that's really great. And things like we talked about have changed so much over the years. Purses have changed. I mean, if we're just looking at the Champions Tour alone, it's pretty inspiring to see not only Phil but someone like the rest of these players. We've got players up to the age of 64 winning on tour.
Yeah.
and so it's pretty inspiring, and the purses are going up. I think the what happened in the early 2000s, in 99, 2000, 2001, with Tiger Woods and his effect on the game, and how purses started rising, sponsorships started coming in. It started to be more popular, not only to watch golf but to put corporate dollars behind a game like golf. Uh, NBC started getting involved, and so we're seeing the same thing now, 20 years later, with COVID. It's a weird phenomenon where people came to the game because there wasn't anything else to do, and the golf industry is growing because of that. We're going to try to retain these players because we know that's not really what happened. By the end of the 2000s, things started dwindling down. We built a lot more golf courses, a lot more golf brands came out, and a lot of people lost their shirt. However, I think we're seeing a big uptick in all of this, and we're going to see more tournaments, more opportunities. You can see how even Division III golf in the U.S. is at a much higher level than Division I was 20 years ago. It's an accomplishment to play Division II or III golf in the U.S. It's these kids are so great. They've got all these schools and camps. There's the fitness element that wasn't so prevalent until Vijay Singh and Tiger Woods started coming in. There were very few players. I know we could go back to Gary Player and talk about how he promoted fitness, but there weren't too many players out there. And then there's the mental part of the game. And of course, technology playing such a role on the precision of the game, not only in the building of clubs, but in distances and ball technology and course management. We could go on and on about the changes in the game. How do you feel about
Hot take, one quick one there. I don't know if you saw the Twitter post with Tom Kite.
Okay, no.
The fitness. They said the reason why fitness never took off in the late 90s and early 2000s was then they showed this image of Tom Kite, and he was wearing nothing but like this little loincloth. You gotta go just go search it.
We'll have to look this
And
up.
anyway, sorry to interrupt you. It just I had to mention that. But yeah, no, Tiger and VJ, and they've taken golf on the fitness side of it to another level.
Yeah, so now you're looking at guys on tour. Everybody's fit. All the guys are working out, and it's elevated everyone's level of game. Not only the distance, and the distance isn't anything new. Everybody knows. Everybody from Tiger Woods, Daly. It is a huge advantage, and so we have this whole Bryson effect with the technology and the kids wanting to use it. But it's I think it's a positive. I think it's great for the game. I think hitting it longer is a good thing. We talked about this, Mike. We talked about the fact that the ball and the technology, maybe there needs to be done something about the ball. But the ball companies have such a huge stake in the game that standardizing a golf ball, like every other sport that uses something to like tennis, hockey. I mean, we could just go through the list of sports that use an object to propel forward, that it's standardized. Golf is the only sport where you could get multiple golf balls. Now, every golf ball company could potentially make the same golf ball, right? If it's a an issue with the actual logo on the golf ball, because if Titleist is the sole golf ball used, and pushed by the R&A for the Open, for example, if they set the standard, then it would be a problem.
I think it gets complicated with all the different manufacturers, because if you look at the My Golf Spy data from the last two golf ball tests they did in 2019 and 2021, they're showing a lot of manufacturers aren't actually, selling you 100% perfect balls. So you're getting, really well-known manufacturers selling you 80, 85% of a dozen can be are good balls. So you're getting a dud or two here or there. Titleist is one of the top manufacturers. Strixon was really well, highly rated in the 2019 ball test, but I think that will be hard to unify the production across all of these brands, and there might be legal challenges because just because these companies aren't going to want to retrofit their factories to accomplish this. But I like the fact that golf is customizable. You can change. You decide what clubs. You only get 14 in the bag. You decide the configuration, and the golf ball is a major tool. So I think this is it's sticky situation for the golf industry to hammer out. And you look at now we have the limitation of the driver shaft in play. How's that going to affect? Like, I suspect the better players, they're going to figure out how to hit it just as far with that shorter shaft, and so it's going to be interesting to watch how this unfolds this year.
Well, golf has taken on a new animal in the last 5 to 10 years, and particularly with Bryson and his his length really giving the USGA and R&A reason to pause and think a little bit more than they ever have about how do we contain this issue if it continues to be an issue of players destroying golf courses that don't have anywhere to go. They don't have the room to lengthen, and honestly don't really want to lengthen beyond where they are, 76, 7,700 yard long golf courses. Well, the last thing we want to try and offer to the consumer is a golf course that length that honestly just makes golf play far too long and unenjoyable. And really, those tees shouldn't even be considered. I do like the way that some of the golf courses have kind of changed the tee boxes up a little bit with the colors. Like, I know Mayfair Lakes, your home club, has kind of done that to really kind of throw out, the gold tees or the blue tees or the black tees being the back tees and the longest. Let's just play, the right length of the golf course for our ability and have more fun. And ultimately, that's what golf should be for 95%. Leave it up to the less than 5% who really should be challenging golf courses to their fullest length.
I first noticed a couple of years ago when Mayfair changed the configuration of the tees, and like, oh, what are the Reds doing back here? But since joining the club and watching the results of that, you now see, and even guys, usually egotistical, male wants to get in the back tees because that's where the pros play. But I'm now seeing guys who aren't very good golfers. They're up on the white tees, which are actually shorter than the previous white tees. It's probably playing about 5,500 or less, and takes a lot of teeth out of the golf course, but they are probably having more fun, getting a few more looks at birdies and a chance to score, because golf is a game, it's always challenging no matter what. Even a single digit cap or a scratch golf or a professional could go up to the front dish and still have a challenge off of a short golf course. So there's a lot said to be moving forward and getting people enjoying the game, playing faster, not 4.5, 5 hour rounds, get them done in 4 hours, and they can play again, because most people have a job or other commitments. They can't just be out there all day.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mike, 100%. That's well put. I always tell people to play the front tees to start off the season, but you could stay there. I mean, they're the junior. The problem is we've labeled the tees, right? The front tees are usually for juniors, ladies, and beginners. So guys are not going to tee off from there. But if you get the amateurs to start playing off the front tees or the second tees, the whites, instead of the blues, they'll realize it's just as hard to score. You still have to play golf. You still need a short game. You still need to get it around the course. And to your point, Fraser, I think for professionals on tour, what they need to do is go back to the old school design golf courses, because if you go to somewhere, I was assistant professional for 2 years over at Royal Montreal Golf Course, if you play the blue course, it doesn't matter if you play the blue tees or the back tees, you're still pretty much going to shoot the same score. And there's something to be said about that. Ball placement. Otherwise, you're in trouble, right? You got to be a ball striker. I mean, you just can't just hit it out there and then just grind it out of the deeper rough like a lot of the power players are doing right now. So this week the Century Tournament of Champions is happening. We've got 38 of the top 39 winners going out. I think Rory's the only one who's really not heading out to Maui. What do you guys think is going to happen out there, and who's going to play? This could kind of get into a segment where we're going to talk about 10 players that might move the needle on tour this year. We usually do a top 10 list, Fraser, but maybe we could talk about those players and the tournament this weekend.
Well, I did watch some of the coverage this morning on Golf Channel, so I heard that the golf course is ready to be picked apart. Mark Rolfing, who has been there in Hawaii now covering golf for 38 years, he said, which is amazing itself. And he said that there's very little wind. They had some rain earlier last week that has just softened the fairways just enough to really let them, for lack of better words, bomb and gouge it to the point where he thinks it's going to be up in the high 20s, like 28, 29 under. That's going to win. It's sort of an average of about 21, 22 under in the history of that event. But when the winds are down and there's a little bit of softness, they're hitting it so far, and it's a wide golf course that they will just tear it apart. And I don't mind that. I don't mind. I love the fact that guys chasing for 59s and having that's almost as fun watching a guy have 3 or 4 holes left, knowing that he's going to get himself into history books. And so I like that. I like low scoring in golf tournaments, but I do love tough tournaments too. I do love the U.S. Open sort of carnage, and I love the fact that Augusta generally can play really tough, and no one's truly going to shoot 30 under par at Augusta over 4 days. They're not going to allow that. And that's where I think golf courses can be designed and can be set up accordingly to whatever score they really want to shoot or the players to shoot. And I don't think they want the PGA Tour. They don't want to embarrass players, constantly throughout the year. They want low scores. They want impressive. Wow, that is amazing. I get amazed when I see someone shoot 59. Think of what a normal consumer of golf thinks about that when they see them hitting it that far and scoring that low and having eagle putts and holing out drivers, like Dustin did almost a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah,
so
that was amazing.
I think it's going to be low. I mean, I have a list. I carved out a list of everyone's going to have the same list of Justin Thomas, champion in 2017, 2020, last year tied for 3rd. Xander, who got an invite for winning, which I just realized for winning the gold medal. He hadn't won. Did he not win last year? I saw that he was invited because he won the gold medal.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's pretty great. I don't think he won either. You're absolutely right. That was his only win of the year.
So they gave him an invite. He won in 19. He was a playoff loser in 2020, tied for 5th in 21. Kind of right up his alley. DJ, 2-time winner, 2013-18. I like Victor Hovland. He likes that grass. He's won the times he's won. It's been on that type of grass. Mayakoba just in November, the Hero World December. His first 2 wins were on that style of grass too. That's my look to. There's the Rahm, the DeChambeau, Morikawa. You can name all the top guys, but I'd say my kind of sneaky pick would be Hovland.
Hovland's won his last couple of wins have been in resort style courses, right? Like you said, with that style of grass. But I think he probably feels relaxed. He's in vacation mode, staying in a beautiful resort. So all he's got to do is get to his tee time and figure out what's for breakfast and dinner, maybe a stretch in between. So he's got a great attitude. He's always smiling. He's called out his own weaknesses and then followed up the next year by working on them, improving his wedge game and whatnot. So I agree. He's a sneaky pick to look for. And I want to throw in a couple names here. Patrick Cantley. He really showed his ability in the playoffs last year, and has been, I think, underestimated. He's a rock solid player. I want to pick a dark horse of Jason Kokrak. I think we're going to see something out of him over this year, because he's hanging around and he's been getting some success, and so he's my dark horse pick for the year.
That's pretty incredible. I can't help but pick Phil Mickelson. You know, with winning the PGA, he's 51. He hasn't been to Kapalua in 21 years. So it's a really big deal. So I'm looking at the older guys. You know, people forget that Lucas Glover won the John Deere last year as well, and he's in there. He's in his late 40s, and he's playing well. You know, Hideki Matsuyama is kind of under the radar just because, you know, he's a Japanese player. He gets a lot of attention, obviously in his home country. But you know, him playing as well as he did and winning the Masters, I think the equivalent to that would be like Mike Weir winning out here when he won in 2003, and how much of a big deal it was. And he also won the Zozo, which is sort of their national championship on the Japanese, tour, which is part of the PGA Tour as well. I think it's a co-sanctioned event, and yeah. So those are my three picks. You know, with Hideki, Lucas Glover obviously is my dark horse, and then Phil Mickelson, because you never know what's going to happen. Phil still bombs it, and he's moving the needle in so many different ways. He's won the PIP, the player. What does the PIP stand
Impact
for?
program.
Impact program. That's right.
Impact program.
That's right. The Impact program, and
$8 million.
$8 million, not bad for somebody who's been in the public eye. But you know, these guys, you know, a lot of people say they don't deserve that money. I'll tell you, Fraser and Mike, I do think they deserve it. They don't make the money that the major superstars of sports like baseball and football and soccer make around the world, and they've been doing it for years, especially for him and Tiger. Even though Tiger didn't play, so that's the other argument. Tiger potentially finishing first or second in all of this after the results come in and get tabulated sometime in February. Because I think he did move the needle with the PNC with his son, right? That was just incredible to watch. You know, the ratings were higher than the Masters for the PNC, so that's pretty outstanding. So those are my picks. How about the rest of the season? What do you guys see for, you know, LPGA, maybe Champions Tour, or even the PGA? Who are the other people that are going to really make a mark this year?
I like Scotty Scheffler. I think he's going to break through. I'm a fan of Tyrrell Hatton. I think he's entertaining to watch. I like him. He's got some fire in his belly. He's done quite a few things out on the golf course in the anger management department. So I think he's fun to watch and got a great game. I'd like to see him have some success.
My pick for PGA Tour would be sneak one that you probably would know him, Ralph, from back east, is Taylor Pendrith.
Oh yeah,
I think he's going to jump out on the PGA Tour this year, and I mean, he already had a moment there back in the fall where he was leading going into the final round there, just didn't quite get the job done. You know, expectedly, it's a hard position to put yourself in so early in your career. But you look at what he did on the Corn Ferry. Well, he was a monster out there every single week. If he didn't top five it, you're what? Where is he? I mean, you've seen his game. He is incredibly long, and I think someone with that much success on the Corn Ferry is bound to break out and get the job done. So I think Taylor Pendrith, for me, looking at a Canadian standpoint, and I'd like to see. I think Brooke Henderson's going to come back and shine again this year. Just too good a player, and I think it could well be her year to take another major down.
That would be great to see Brooke do that again. And LPGA is really strong with the Corda sisters. There's such a deep field out there, and these girls are so good. So I think we're going to see a lot of records set out in LPGA this year.
Yeah, LPGA, we got Lydia Ko making a bit of a comeback. Inby is doing pretty good. there's so many women. I'm enjoying LPGA golf more and more because it's being broadcasted more. We're able to see the talent that's really out there, and they're showcasing it a little bit more. And I'm becoming more of a fan and learning more about the players. And they're doing profiles, and with obviously with social media and all the platforms, we're able to see all these new stats and live betting coming into effect. You really feel like you're part of the game. Um, and then on the Champions Tour, what can I say? I grew up watching all these guys. Um, I'm loving it. Everybody from John Daly to Mike Weir making a resurgence right now, playing so well.
Hmm.
Getting that win in. Uh, you know, Everybody from Petrovic to people who are broadcasters right now coming back in. So we're going to see David Duval. We're going to see. Is it who else are we going to see coming in this year that are new?
Well,
Eh,
Paul Stankowski's out there
yeah,
as well. I'm not sure who the new crew coming on board at the moment, but there's so many. It's like watching golf 20 years ago, and it's exciting. The purses are increasing, and we had Rob Labritz on the show last week, and so obviously we're a fan of this guy and where he can go this year. He's got a lot of wins under his belt. He's a hell of a golfer. He's really fit. He's got a great chance at having success out there. So the senior tour is going to be fun. Pardon me, Champions Tour. It's going to be lots of fun to watch this year.
VJ, did you see the video of VJ
yeah, I
training?
did.
Yes.
I think I reposted it on our Twitter account this morning,
Yeah,
and that was just incredible. It's like a Rocky training. The
Yeah.
guy
yeah,
is in such great shape for his age. I just felt horrible. I was happy for him, and I'm thinking I can't do any of that. He's throwing that medicine ball around like it's a tennis ball, and
Yeah.
yeah,
it's pretty great to see. And to your point, Fraser, I mean Corey Connors, Graham Dillette, Michael Glickich, Adam Hadwin, Mackenzie Hughes, Taylor Pendrith. I'm going to mention all these because they deserve the mention. We don't get enough coverage. I know TSN
yeah.
does a great job. They do what they can. Um, but there's Adam Svensson and Nick Taylor.
Hmm.
They're all out there grinding it out, and it's so hard for a Canadian to go out there for all the reasons we talked about earlier. The support systems and what they had to do to push through to get through. On the LPGA Tour, obviously Brooke Henderson. We're going to see Modami LeBlanc play this year, full status. Elena Sharp, she's always
Yep,
hanging around, and we've got the new girl named Maddie Shurik who went through Q school and finished in the top 40. So she's got full exempt status. That's
yeah,
really neat to see. And on the Canadian side, these names might ring true to some of us. I mean, obviously Mike Weir, but remember Jim Rutledge? Jim Rutledge,
mm,
I still believe has some status. Then we got David Moreland, who's playing on the Champions Tour,
hmm,
making some splashes here and there. And then I think Stephen Ames is going to have a big year. I know people don't realize how good that guy is. He's
he
really,
is.
he's really, really
Yeah.
great. And then obviously, on the Legends Tour, nobody talks about Legends Tour for women. They don't have too many events, and because of COVID and sponsorship, but we've got Lori Kane and Tina Toombs, who's playing out there, Gail Graham and Barb Bunkowski, right? So great to just to throw out those names and give them some recognition for what they've accomplished. Because in my mind and in my eyes, just being able to play a PGA Tour event like you have, Fraser, is is quite the accomplishment. You think about what it took you to get there, right? Like how much actual work. It's not. It doesn't just happen. It's not just because of a qualifier, but it's a culmination of life experiences and taking those opportunities and then finally kind of somewhat peaking, right? I'm
Yeah.
sure you know what I'm saying.
No, it definitely for me it was peaking in little bursts. And those guys that are out there full time, they're peaking so much more often. And their career is just full of those peaks. And their peaks were, much higher than mine. But it was a journey, to reach that. It is an incredible amount of work that goes into developing as a young player to gain experience. It can be costly for players who travel, to go play in national tournaments or international tournaments as a young amateur. a junior. I mean, the travel that's going on right now these days as a young junior to get the ranking points to try and attract the, the top college coaches. That's all it's all about right now is, what are you playing in? Are you playing well in those events? Are you accumulating the world ranking points as a young amateur or a junior and getting the eyeballs? Because ultimately your ticket is punched if you get down to one of those top schools. 4 years of, hopefully it's a full scholarship, free tutelage from the top coaches, the top physical trainers, mental specialists, and traveling on the college program's dime. There cannot be a better way to learn without paying for it if you can get on one of those scholarship programs and get down to one of those top teams and stay down in the warm climate and compete against a lot of great players and learn how to travel and be prepared when you hit any tour Q school you're going to go to.
Yeah, I agree.
So Fraser, who's next out of the VGT crowd? Who do you think is going to break through? Like James Allenby, Chris Logo? There's who do you see as might see Corn Ferry or PGA?
Well, it's such a tough journey, and unfortunately for these young guys, these last 2 years have really been broken apart due to COVID and the lack of ability to travel, for the US players to come up here and play and to have a full schedule. They really had to do their best they can. And mentally, it was a grind for a lot of these guys. But I'm going to list you a number of players who I think are going to compete and play well on our tour. And in particular, a couple of players who have some status beyond the VGT already, who I think have the best opportunity, at least from our local batch of players. As of recent, one of the players that's kind of shone brightly, played well this year on the Mackenzie Tour, PGA Tour Canada, Ziggy Nathu, who plays at a Richmond Country Club. He just recently qualified for the Latin America Tour. So he's got some starts down there. And same with Caleb Gorban, who won the Vancouver Open in 2020. Caleb's another Taylor Penrith. You look at this guy and you go, how can you possibly hit the ball that far? He was in the Vancouver Open driving par fours, 380 yards.
Wow.
Fraser View, first hole, Fraser View, drove it to the back of the green. Second hole is a par five. He hit driver lob wedge. Fourth hole, driver lob wedge, par five. Like, he's hitting it in places that only DeChambeau and a very select few people are hitting it. Wow. And I think it's a matter of time. It's discipline. It's pulling the driver out when you really need to and learning how to manage the rest of it. If he gets a good caddy on the bag and can travel with him, I think the sky's the limit for Caleb Gorban, honestly. But going down the list of young players, Ilarian Zali, who was a rookie, was rookie of the year last year on our tour. He won 2 times on our tour. He had a top 5 finish at the Golf BC Championships at Gallagher's Canyon on the Mackenzie Tour last year. Obviously, James Allenby, one of our most accomplished BC players. Again, a really tough year for him to go through, only getting to play. I think they had 8 or 9 events on the Forum Tour down in the States. He had 2 top 15 finishes. He came 40th on the money list, and it won him $9,000. Like, that's the sad part of it, is you cannot make a living on that tour unless you're a top 5 player and you're not moving beyond that. So, he's back working hard in his game. I've seen some of his posts. He's, he works at a course where his mom and dad own the Langley Golf Center. So he trains out of there and works a bit there. Kevin Stinson, I mean, arguably VGT's top local pro the last 6 years. He's won the Order of Merit 6 of the last 7 times. He won 6 times on our tour last year. He won another 4 or 5 tournaments on the G&G Tour, and you cannot just, he went down south and he actually played some decent events down in Phoenix this winter. Zach Olson, young pro out of Chilliwack Golf Club, 4 runner-ups last year. I know he's going to have a breakthrough year this year to win his first time. And 2 players who play or will be playing the Mackenzie Tour, Lauren Rowe and Evan Holmes. Lauren's from Squamish and Evan's from Shaughnessy Golf Club. They both qualified and played the Forum Tour this year. And I think once they get some status and actually get a full season of Mackenzie Tour events under their belt, I think it's just a matter of time for them to get that confidence and feel like they've got a schedule of events that they can actually travel to and make some money. I know the purses are going to be up this year compared to last year on the Mackenzie Tour. So, you know, you have a top 10 or top 5 finish, you're going to make some good money on that tour. And that ultimately is going to pay in confidence going forward.
Mm-hmm.
On the amateur side, we had some amazing young players on our tour do some amazing things. Ethan Postumus, 15-year-old junior. He won 3 times on our tour. He dominated the whole year. He was the low amateur at the Vancouver Open. He beat a lot of young, really young, nice young players. All the UBC players were playing there. He's going to be, I mean, he's only 15 years old and he won our Order of Merit already. Mike Azawa, 6 wins, only to be outplayed by Ethan in the last event. Russell Howlett, Aiden Schumer, Ethan DeGraff, top UBC players, Dustin Franco, Caleb Davies, another 16-year-old kid at Newlands Golf Course, and Ryan Stoley's, who plays for SFU, probably the sort of the brightest shining player from their team. All great players playing our tour. Look for their, their successes in amateur golf, and maybe Ryan, I think, might be graduating from SFU this year, so he might think about turning pro. And on the women's side, Christine Wong and Jaya Rampuri, our top 2 female players. They sort of battled it out back and forth, but a lot of nice young amateur female players: Emily Lee, Sonia Tang, and June Seo. Emily and Sonia both play for UBC, and they played great this fall. So those would be kind of the top players to look out for from our tour. I know there's some great players beyond VGT, obviously, but if you look at leaderboards, we're cheering them on to success. And Angela Aurora, who has played a number of VGT events, she's now playing for Team Canada, so we want to cheer her on. And like you said, Chris Crisologo, another one of these talented young players who hits it a mile.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think if he continues to get support financially and gets a full season finally on the Mackenzie Tour, you know, he's only in his 3rd year as a pro golfer, so I think in this game you got to be patient. You can't be a 1 and done or a 2 and done kind of thing. You got to give it 4 or 5 years. And if at that point you haven't sort of made strides beyond Mackenzie to the Corn Ferry, you know, I think that's the time to have to reflect and say, is this for me? You look at how long it took Adam Hadwin, you know, to make it to the PGA Tour. Mm-hmm. He spent 3 years on the Canadian Tour, 2 more years on the Corn Ferry, went to the PGA Tour, back to the Corn Ferry, and then back to the PGA Tour. You know, 6 or 7 years before he established himself on the PGA Tour, and now, you know, he's a top 100 player every year.
Yeah, golf is a hard game.
Yeah, it's that's for sure. You know, Fraser, tell us what players came out of the VGT or dropped in to play some events. Maybe you could let us know about a couple of players for those who are listening or watching us.
Well, I mean, the top player that we all know here anyway from BC is Nick Taylor. And Nick, 2 years ago, Nick played in 3 of our events. When COVID was ramping up, he actually came back home from the PGA Championship, the Players Championship. That was the last event in 2020. Came back to Vancouver, sort of just to see what was happening. Didn't know if he was going to get back out there. So he played a few of our spring events. It was really fun to have him in our on tour playing. He went right down the final 9 holes with one of our players, John McCloddick. And John shot 28 on him on the back 9 to take Nick down. That was 2 years ago. And then last year, he one of the events on our schedule was the Nick Taylor Charity Pro-Am. And so it was a fun format. It was one amateur and 1 pro, sort of the theme after Nick's win at the Pebble Beach Pro-Am. So it was instead of the regular 3 and 1, 3 amateurs, 1 pro, it was 1 pro, 1 amateur. And the sponsor there, Reliable Tube, got to give them a plug, kicked in $20,000 for a 1-day Pro-Am purse.
Wow. And
Nick went and won it. So good for him. Not that he needed the $4,500, but there's the potential for that event to take on new legs this year. Still in talks with that sponsor and with Nick and his charity foundation. And if all things come together for that event, it could well be the biggest event on our schedule in 2021. So stay tuned. And maybe if there's another segment in the spring or summer, I can certainly give more. As soon as it's announced, I'll let you guys know through Twitter and all the social media feeds. Yeah, it's a little harder for Adam. We have seen Adam come back and play our tour. He came back in 2016 and won the Vancouver Open for his third time. So that was very cool for those who got to see him play and those who got to play with him. And it's always just really, really cool to see guys like James Allenby, who, I honestly think he's good enough to play at the PGA Tour level or the Corn Ferry Tour. A guy goes out and 2 times in a 36-hole event, shot 20 under par for 2 days, 2 different tournaments, and almost shot 59 2 days in a row. That is a sign that's good enough to get out there. And I honestly think he's the only thing that Father Time is catching up on him. Not that he's not physical enough to go and do it and not strong enough to go do it. It's just a matter of, he's 37 years old. He's turning 38, I think, this year. And he has no kids. He doesn't have a family. He doesn't look it. He's young. In great shape. He always looks after himself and trains hard. So it's fun to see him in our fields, because I know that it elevates the game for a lot of other players. And, I always love it when he wins, because it to me, it helps him move forward. Yeah. And if anything, that's what our tour does, is it puts money in their pockets so that they can go beyond our tour and then take it and try and win on the higher levels.
I've played with James a couple times in pro-ams, very lucky to do that. And one of the pro-ams at Pagoda Ridge Golf Club, probably 7 years ago now, his wedge game was beautiful. He's probably 4 or 5 under for the day, but he could have been 14 under, because every green he hit this perfectly flighted wedge is right there with like 6 to 15 feet away from the pin, and it just was a matter of making putts. But just watching him play and how consistent and the sound, like that audio of his ball striking was very impressive. So I would love to see him break through and get into the big leagues.
It's really great to hear about players like Nick Taylor coming back and playing, because even a victory on one of your events, it gives them confidence. It does something for them. Even though, Nick's won twice on tour, he's ranked 200th in the world. He ranks up there in FedEx points, but just getting wins on the PGA Tour or anywhere for that matter is pretty great, right? And I would love to see more amateurs go out even to watch the smaller tour events, and just maybe stand at the tee box and watch events like yours. Because you'll start realizing that on a lower level, you guys are pretty great. I remember going out for the first time to a skins game, or out at Fontainebleau Golf Club in Quebec. It was Mickelson, VJ, Hank Keeney, and John Daly. So they're all bombers. And I followed them. The crowds weren't all that big. They're about 3,000 to 4,000 people walking with them. And I stood at every tee box, and I just remember watching every shot and thinking, I've played tournament golf. I've never seen the ball come off the club face quite like that. Even though I've gone to Canadian Opens, the way I follow those 4. And then when people don't realize that Hank Keeney, how long he really was. Back in 2003 and 4, he was longest on tour. He's hitting the ball 320. 321 point something was his average back then. He would beat anybody if he had today's technology, if he was on tour and he had that game that he had back then. So I just want to throw it out there. He's not, Bryson and these guys, I think he'd be getting it out there without having to jump out of their shoes. But just to go full circle with what you were saying, Fraser, do you have a schedule that's coming out, or do you have an idea of exactly, maybe the month where things are going to get started, and what are those events?
We're going to launch our schedule in the first week of April, and Gatekeeper Systems is our opening event sponsor, and they came on board a couple years ago, and have started with the opening event, as well as a bit of a series for the pros to challenge themselves to try and get into a finale, where the top 6 guys at the end of the year, they get into just to play for a purse of, it's $5,000, but it's a no entry fee and purse for them to just kind of come out and spend a day with a sponsor. And so that'll be the start of the year, and we'll fire off 24 events from 24. First week in April. Yeah,
that's great. Wow.
Yeah, and that's a bit of a reduction from past years. We've been up in the 30s And with the growth of the membership and the size of the fields expanding as they have, it wasn't giving our staff and our volunteers enough time to, go from one event and, first rest and recover from the long days, because there were a lot of 14 to 16-hour days, and the volunteers pouring in 10 to 12-hour days, and it's just not right. It's not fair for them. So we had a lot of stops and starts last year. For 6 weeks, we couldn't run tournaments due to COVID, and then so we back ended a lot of tournaments into September and October, and the team was just ultimately destroyed. We were just tired, and so less is more is our theme this year, where less events but make them better. Our goal is to have every single one of our events sponsored, and that way it's more exciting. It's more exciting for the amateurs, who will then get a welcome gift to come and to really give them a feel of great value. Play the venues. Obviously, they're all going to be in great shape. All the superintendents do a great job and receive us well and put on a great show for the players. But it's about, like you said, sponsorship is the key. If we can get sponsors to bump the purses up, if we can get them to help with some welcome gifts and help us bump the amateur prizing up, everybody wins. And ultimately, that's our goal, is to have 24 super events where, the members all at the end of the year go, wow, that was unbelievable. Professionally run, scaled up, with sponsor banners everywhere, more sponsor engagement where, there's drinks on course and there's snacks and there's, things at the end of the day. Maybe there's a putting contest put on by, whichever other sponsor, and just give them a sense of it's more than just coming out, playing and leaving in the day, to make it more exciting. And, we have great partnerships in place with some events that have been doing this for a while. The Golden Ears Open, the Chilliwack Open, lately the Golden Eagle. Golden Eagle's really stepped it up with their involvement, and Meadow Gardens too. And that's our goal, is to really kind of elevate all our events that are, so that they're at that size and maybe bigger, as far as the pro purse, elevating the pro purse bigger. But to get like the amateur prizing and the tea gifting has always been great at those events, because they have sort of been a one-off event for those clubs, and they can pour all the sponsors in from their community into those events. And that's our goal, is to keep partnering with those events that have been successful, and then make our own events level with those, or even bigger.
With the changes to prizing and amateurs not only being able to accept sponsorship money and funding, but they can now earn cash. So do you anticipate any changes to the prizing for amateurs with these new rules?
In the elite side of it, there will be an option for the young amateurs, if they want to compete for the purse. Then they can pay the entry fee that the pros pay.
Okay.
That's ultimately the opportunity. The pros pay a certain fee, the amateurs pay a little bit less for a fee. But if they want to play for the purse, only fair to the pros who have paid that entry fee. If the amateur is going to come and take away that money now, well, then they got to pay the same fee. And so that will be an opportunity for them to opt in or opt out of that. And not every young amateur wants to try and play for the cash, but there is certainly a percentage that this might help their career. One, knowing that, wow, I played with James Allen, beat Kevin Stinson and the likes, and Chris Crisologo, I beat them. And I took the money, and
Mike
so
wants
it
the
might
cash.
just give them that.
Mike wants the cash.
Mike wants the cash. Oh, no, he does.
Well, there's definitely something when you go and play, even in the Vancouver Open, for example, and you look at the scores after and you realize, like, hey, you know what? I finished ahead of a few pros, so I didn't win the flight, but there's always some positive. You can dive into the data after the tournament's over and see where you stacked up against it. But I believe there's limitations, that it's only $1,000. It can't be obviously in a handicapped event. So that obviously brings in a level of complication in terms of competition. And but I think it makes sense. If you want to go play for the big money, you got to pay for the green fees.
Hey, who knows? We're going into crypto world right now, so we might be going into Bitcoin pricing these days, and everything's possible. But we're running into 1 hour and 15 minutes of our podcast. I'd love
That's great.
Wow.
for you to be able to maybe talk about how we could get in touch with you. I know if you're out there and listening, we have an audience that's possibly worldwide, looking at our new metrics in the U.S. and in Canada. So if you're in Oregon, Washington, Alberta or BC, and you're thinking of playing in amateur or professional golf, make sure you get in touch with Fraser and his team for the Vancouver Golf Tour, and also sponsors. So I'm going to reach out right now and say, hey, if you want to be part of the sport on a corporate level, reach out to the VGT and give them a hand. You could become part of golf in that way, and you develop some great relationships and get some good exposure. Yeah, Fraser, tell us, how can we get in touch with you, both on the corporate side of things for sponsorship and for the players to register?
Yeah. Also, what are you plugging right now? Give a shout out to your sponsors and any initiatives that you
For
want to
sure.
mention.
Well, thanks for that opportunity. 15-year long tour title sponsor is IGA. They're a local company that has serviced, BC community for many years, the Louis family, and they have been on board since day one in 2016 as our tour title sponsor. And Strixon Cleveland, again, a legacy sponsor, have been on since day one, and they're our official ball and equipment sponsor, as well as the Order of Merit sponsor. Johnson Meyer Insurance, again, a sponsor since day one. That Dave Ebner, a really good buddy of mine, came on board as a intro sponsor, and has been the lead sponsor of the Vancouver Open, for the last 4 or 5 years. So there's a lot. I'm not going to list them all, but those are our 3 or 4 key sponsors that really have sort of stood out and allowed VGT to succeed and gain the momentum that we've needed to move on, beyond being a very small boutique operation to now hiring a staff of individuals that are helping us execute the events of 200 plus players. Please feel free to come on out. Like I said, it's a tour for both professionals and amateurs. And all we ask for the amateur golfers is to have a Golf Canada or USGA certified handicap, 18 or under for the men and 22 or under for the women. There's lots of room to play, lots of room in the membership to come play. And our website is vancouvergolftour.com. But you can also reach us on social media channels through Instagram or at Twitter at Van Golf Tour. My personal account is at Vancouver Golf. So please feel free to send us a shout out there. And at Facebook, lots of galleries, video and picture galleries from the events. We do a really nice collaboration of each event on our Facebook page, and it's just facebook.com/Vancouver Golf Tour. So info at vancouvergolftour.com. You name it, 604-980-GOLF. You can reach me anyway. We'd love to see you. We'd love to keep growing the membership and grow the size of our events. And as Raf said, we encourage all local businesses or regional businesses to come on board and really help support us grow this community initiative that really is allowing people to strive hard for aiming for whatever dreams they have in golf, whether it's moving from B flight to championship flight, turning pro, or if it's one of the young pros that already has turned pro and really looking to make a stepping stone from local pro golf into worldwide golf on the PGA Tour.
Amazing.
Excellent. So Fraser, we like to end the broadcast with some humor. So usually we swap some stories, and you must have something funny that's happened on the golf course and in your years being out there. So if there anything that stands out, that it's not allowed to be about me throwing anything.
That's been multiple segments we've talked about that. But
wow, I'm trying to get one that I can. There's been lots of occasions where I've had the opportunity to meet great people. The one kind of funny one that stands out for me was when I played in the 99 Air Canada Championship, and I also got back in 2002. And in 2002, after Mike Weir had that first win in 99, incredible run in his career, trying to win his second event. He made the cut in 2002. I was there, missed the cut obviously, but there as a spectator, and I was in the members area, or the players area lounge, where there was a buffet, and help yourself to a beer or a glass of wine, and watch on the patio. And I remember the last few groups were coming in, and in storms Mike Weir, and he was not happy. He shot 73, I think, in the final round, tied for 40th, and not where he wanted to be, obviously, after the final day. And he walked, kind of hustled in. He went straight for 2 bottles of wine, pulled them out of the ice, and said, "Hey guys," and off he went. That was my little story with Mike Weir at the Canada Championship. I think he had a local caddy, Jeff Kramer, who he'd gone to school with down at Brigham Young, and Jeff obviously was the designated driver for the day, so they were off to go somewhere. I don't know where they were going with that wine.
That brings me
in the locker room.
I was going to share another story, but you brought up Mike Weir, and Mike and I were over at the President's Cup in 2007 at Royal Montreal. I was with CJAD and West Island Golf Media at the time, and I got the chance to walk inside the ropes for all the events. And in one of the matches, I was walking behind Mike Weir, and I was in the fairway behind him about 100 yards or so. And on one of his shots, I was standing right in his line behind him, but I thought I was far enough behind that he wouldn't really see me. And here he sets up to the ball, and I'm just standing there by myself with my arms crossed, thinking I'm far enough that it wouldn't bother him. And being a golfer, I should know better, right? You could feel somebody in your line, in your direct line. They don't even let cameras stay in your direct line. You could always see that angle, right? And so just before he takes his club back, he looks back, he backs away. He goes, "Can you get out of the way, please?" And then his caddy starts yelling at me, and I kind of shuffled over to the side. So that's one of my Mike Weir encounters back in 2007.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was there with Raf for one of the media days.
Oh no, is this a Jack story?
Yeah, I'll lead into that. Well, Raf had media passes, and I was in Toronto the day before, and I was planning. I already had tickets for the Thursday and Sunday, and a group of friends were all going to meet in Montreal. So Raf messaging me on Monday. He's like, "I got an extra media pass for Tuesday." So I'm like, "I'm in the car." I drove from Toronto over to Montreal to meet Raf at the club the next day. And I'm on the range with my little point and click Sony camera, with my press pass. And I'll have to post pictures of this because I got stink eye from Jack. I'm literally 8 feet from Phil and Jack having a private conversation. I'm taking pictures of them, and Jack's looking directly at me like, "Who the F are you?" And I'm running around taking pictures. I got pictures of the teams. I got 400 snaps from that day. And it was hilarious. I got Tiger giving me stink eye, and I've got Jack giving me stink eye.
Well, the worst part, it was open media day, so it was open for the public to take pictures. But because we were inside the ropes on the range and everywhere else, it was a little bit odd.
Well, the greatest thing about that, obviously just being there around all these guys, but Mike Weir was on the range hitting right-handed shots and trying VJ's clubs. Charles Howell and Tiger were switching balls because they're going to be playing together. So everyone was using everyone else's equipment, which was something you would never see on any other PGA range day. So it was fun. So a really special moment. But and another thing that happened there, I just by chance I was wearing my best golf pants. They were semi-beige khakis, and I had a reddish shirt on for the day, and it just happened to be a similar color to the American team. So, walking through from green to tee, some guy hands me something to sign thinking I'm part of the team. It was just hilarious. I'm surprised I didn't get kicked out.
Yeah, lots of good stories, lots of great stories. Well, Fraser, I just want to say thanks for coming on. Thanks for everything that you do. For Fraser Mulholland and Michael Bleakley, I'm Raphael Calamat. You've been listening to the Golf Podcast Live. It was a special thanks going out to Drinkwell, Upper Hand Collectibles and Sports Cards, Evolve Creative Solutions. And we'll see you next week. Take care, guys. Thanks again.
Thanks,
guys.
Fraser.
Thanks, guys. Thank you for having me, guys.
Absolutely.